Hey everyone, Carl here from Roll 'em If You Got 'em, and as always, joined by Dakota.
Hello.
And we have a little bit different episode here. So this previous weekend, we got together and were able to get in our first games of 10th edition. We don't, we were unable to take pictures and those kinds of things because we were playing off of our phones the entire time. But we'll have more on that here shortly. So more of just a traditional podcast style of setup here for everyone. We played 3 games, none of which were to completion, but they were all close enough to where it would have been me taking a gambit in the end to see what would happen. One of the games was a 3-player game, which is something we'll touch on in a different episode. Kind of how we went about navigating deployments and how to do missions and those kinds of things. But for the first games that we just played against each other, it was my Death Guard against Dakota's Dark Angels for both of them. And there was a lot of nice things to come out of these first 10th edition games.
Yeah, in the first few games, there's a lot of learning and relearning, and just honestly getting to roll dice in the new edition was pretty cool. And just seeing how things played out, I thought it went really well.
Yes. Like I said, we wanted to take a lot of pictures and things and maybe even lean that into a battle report type of thing, but it ended up not happening because, like I said, we were using the app on our phones the entire time. So that'd kind of be my first thing is like, I wish I had a better way to like print my list from the app so that I could like see lots of my things, because between me looking at my stuff and thinking about, oh, like I want to try to do this or I want to try to do that, and then Dakota would ask me, oh, what's their toughness? What's this? So then I got to go back and re-go into a different unit, and it made for kind of a pain in the butt. But since then, we realized that we've started to put together some spreadsheets and stuff with the units that once we get those filled out, we'll probably have something on those too. But for the first games here, for me at least, I know like I had these lists made in my phone and these grandiose plans, and then the time came and I realized that I was trying to get a lot of terrain printed before we played, and I was having some failures there, which led to me not getting the models printed that I wanted before we played. So then like the day before came and I was like, oh, I have to redo these lists because I do not have some of the models that I just have in these lists that I planned on printing.
Right.
Which that kind of led to maybe a little more vanilla Death Guard list for me. So the list I ended up running was a Lord of Contagion as my commander, leading some Blightlord Terminators. I had the Chaos Lord and some Deathshroud Terminators, Malignant Plaguecaster, and a Noxious Blightbringer, and some Plague Marines, Plague Surgeon, Tallyman, and some Plague Marines. And then I threw in a couple of Bloat Drones and a Plague Burst Crawler. So it was, a very run-of-the-mill sort of Death Guard list, I think.
Yeah, and I was playing my Dark Angels. I pretty much had, I had everything that I was running. I would say even 2 on my list. I'm not gonna say, I don't want to use the word specialized, but I didn't have it where I was like, oh, I'm going very concentrated. This is kind of just a lot of different data sheets and some cool stuff I had painted, and I was like, I'm gonna play this and just see how it goes. Like, it's game one. I don't need to try to go win the ITC here in the first game.
Sure.
But mine basically was Azrael rocking around as my warlord. He was in some Hellblasters. I had the new lieutenant with a combi weapon. I had a Captain and Terminator armor, Terminators, the Ballistus Dread, a unit of Inceptors, a unit of Eradicators, 2 units of 3 Ravenwing Black Knights, a Redemptor Dread, and a Stern Guard Veteran Squad. So just a lot of different data sheets, that did a lot of different things essentially.
In the game mode we ended up getting for the first game was Sights of Power.
Yes.
You want to read off a little bit of that card? And
Yep. So Sights of Power. Okay. So the primary mission was Sights of Power, which is the objective marker in No Man's Land are Sights of Power. At the end of each command phase, the player's who turned is empowers all sites of power they control that have one or more character models from their army within range. Each site of power remains empowered by that player, while one or more of their character models remains within range of it. So basically, get characters on objectives, and you can score extra VP. Second, third, and fourth battle rounds at the end of each player's commander's phase. The player whose turn is scores VPs as follows, up to 15. 3 for each objective marker they control. 3 for each side of power that they have empowered. Note that these are they're cumulative. So a player that controls one objective marker they have also empowered will score 6 VP that turn.
gotcha.
And then the mission, so the mission rule that was with it was delayed reserves. Essentially, when you bring in reserves or deep strikers, you need to roll a 3+ up until battle round 3. Yeah.
That actually mattered quite a bit, didn't it? I feel like we failed
a
couple of them. We were like, oh, that's sort of cool.
So on a 3-up, anything that could come in round 2 can't come in round 2 is how it basically works out. And in round 2, I think all of my deep strikers, because I set up my Inceptors and my Terminators in deep strike round 2, neither of them came in.
Yes.
So they were kind of sitting on the sideline an extra round. And then
I had Death Shroud Terminators and Blight Lord Terminators, and I think the Death Shrouds failed theirs too. I think they were like a round late getting in, which it added a nice little wrinkle because I had my Plague Burst Crawler set up in a way to where he couldn't deep strike behind it and stuff. But at the same time, I was like, I need these units to get on the table so I can kind of try to move this guy, but I can't move this guy until he passes some of these rolls. It was cool. It was cool. I liked it. For secondaries, we ran the tactical missions just because we just wanted to kind of embrace the chaos of the new game. We didn't want to, I didn't feel comfortable enough picking 2 fixed because I was like, I don't even know what the game feels like right now. So I'm going to go tactical, and if whatever happens, I don't really care.
Yeah. I think, honestly, going tactical, I don't even say it was the right way. I think that's the more fun way to play, because playing, the previous edition where you have fixed objectives, where you're like, okay, I'm going to execute plan XYZ. Well, it was kind of fun just being like, okay, these are the 2 secondaries I'm scoring now, and then I can kind of go off of that, which makes the play more variable. So instead of just saying, I'm going to go do this and jam my models in the middle of the table, or go do this, it was like you had to, be flexible in what you're trying to do.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, in the end, you're trying to fight over the middle objectives, I think, is most of the tactical missions, essentially. But it was still, do X, do Y. Oh, a kill one came up, try to take care of that while doing the primary mission. I thought it really worked well together and made it a little bit easier of, managing kind of that, instead of being like, oh, my secondary is keep a unit on the center objective.
Yep.
It was more variable. It was fun. I think we used tactical. I will say we used tactical in all the games that we played, and it was more fun in every game that we played, I think, than a fixed mission set would be.
Sure, I agree. And then that game, I had my unit of Blightlord Terminators basically get melted by Oath of Moment, and then it was like I was looking at my list and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I felt so underpowered. And I realized that that was one of the things I was supposed to have some time 3D print some extra models. I had the unit of Blightlord Terminators as a unit of 10 in the list, but I only had like 8 actual ones, so I just ran a unit of 5 and I never adjusted the points. So I was a couple hundred points down on that, I believe, because those guys are, they're 175. So almost a whole unit of 10 Plague Marines.
Yeah. So basically, once we figured it out, it was like, throw 10 plague, throw a unit back on the table. It obviously kind of sucked just because you didn't have that unit for like pushing objectives or anything earlier until they died. But then it was like, oh, whoops. And kind of reset it there. And
then I checked the rest of the list that I made for the weekend and was like, oh, these all need changed.
But no, it was fun. Oh, I did not mention to you, I was playing Dark Angels and I was using the Dark Angels. Whatchamacallit, the Dark Angels index with their thing. I was not running the Gladius Task Force. I was running the Unforgiven Task Force or whatever it's called. So that's the one thing I think is kind of cool with the Space Marines right now is you can run every faction kind of 2 ways. You can run the Gladius or the Unforgiven, depending on really what you want to throw in there. So they're the one faction that kind of has some flexibility.
Any final thoughts on our first game? I don't remember anything else sticking out.
First game, I don't think there was much that really stood out. I think so one thing too, going kind of back to the app, because we can touch on it now. In the first game, was we were playing off of it. So what we mean by that is when you're pulling up a unit card, I'm going to go shoot with this unit. I'm pulling that unit up in the app, looking at their stats again, doing everything. I think the app has been great for that army building aspect because, like, I'm doing what we've done in other games where you're just like, oh, I have a 5-minute break at work, and you're like playing around, like, how can I throw all this together?
That's a good portion of the fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I enjoy list building. I want that to be a pleasurable experience.
Uh-huh.
And the app does a pretty good job at that.
Yeah. The negative, I think, with the app is every like data sheet is like an extra click behind where it needs to be. So when you're playing, instead of just saying, oh, my Inceptors, and clicking them, instead of opening up where you can see like their stats and their data sheet, it opens up like war gear options. Then you got to hit the next button to go to their stats. And then there's even drop downs within that. Like, I get that there's a lot of information on all those data sheets, but when you're like 3 or 4 clicks on that app, it starts to get a little like, oh, I need to pull up their thing really quick. And then you're like clicking through 4 things and then you're scrolling through them. And it's like you miss stuff.
There's certain information that I think everyone can agree is more prominent to have at quick touches while you're playing.
Yeah.
And when I'm trying to plan out, I want to use this ability, and he goes, hey, what's their toughness? And I go, and I got to back click, click another unit, click in, go click this guy. And then I've lost my train of thought on what I was even looking for 10 seconds ago anyhow. There was definitely part of that where I was like, I want this to be a little different. Some type of print function or something, or like, we've started to make these spreadsheets now that I think are going to be real useful. And then another one within the app, it would have been nice to say, hey, this attachment is attached to this unit, and I could see both of them maybe just swipe it, just be like, okay, I'm on these guys. Here's my unit. Let me swipe. There's the attachment for these guys. And I know that's something like you wouldn't want to do with list building because you don't assign the attachments to the units until later, but I wish there was a way to be like, okay, like a game ready kind of mode where it really stripped that app down, or stripped the list building or whatever, stripped it down to some more bare bones to make it a little easier.
And even too, when you look at like a unit and you look at their like ranged weapon options, it shows you every ranged weapon option that they have, not what you even select in the war gear.
Yes, I wish that's another one with that bare bones. Like, just show me what I picked and show me how many of them I have.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many times I would roll the wrong weapon because Death Guard have 6 different ranged weapons on a Plague Marine. I think the Plague Marine data slate actually has 8 or 10 because the Plague Marine champion is in there.
Yeah. Yeah, they have so many different options that you can put on that one unit. And yeah,
1,
it's easier
2,
when you
3,
look at
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, because it's the Plague Marines and the Plague Marine champion has all their options. So there's 10 different guns on the data slate.
yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to have to look at 10
Yeah.
because I only picked 3. I went with the basic bolt gun and then the pistol or whatever for my champion. And
yeah, and then it's just one of those things too, because then you're just trying to go back and forth on a few things and you're like, what gun did I put on this guy? Some units it's easier because they have 2 options and you're like, all right, I picked the plasma version on them. Like, I know that. But then even like I know I had a Redemptor and that thing's got like 6 different guns on it, and I'm like, what the hell? Which ones are? And 4 of them are in use, and you're just like, I don't remember which ones are which. And 2 of them have, one's a heavy onslaught Gatling cannon, the other one's just an onslaught Gatling cannon. So you're like, what the hell? One is actually on this guy.
Yep. Yeah, I think there was quite a few times, or I think I might have played that whole first game and realized I wasn't shooting one of the Plague Burst Crawler weapons.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever.
I mean, we are newer.
Sure.
Newer to the game, so we are making some of those simpler mistakes, but also it wasn't as streamlined as you think it could be, even for new players.
Yes. Second game?
Yeah. So second game, our primary mission was Vital Ground. Basically, remove the marker in no man's land that's closest to the center of the battlefield, and you score victory points. If you control the marker in their own deployment zone, you get 2. For each objective marker in no man's land, you score 5. And then if they control the objective marker in their opponent's deployment zone, score 6. So scoring for holding objectives. And the mission rule is sweep and clear. So once you control an objective, you control it until the opponent takes it.
Yes, which is a ability Death Guard already have. So it was like, my opponent's getting something for nothing, and I'm getting nothing.
Yeah. And then I don't know if in both games we played the search and destroy deployment. I don't know if I mentioned that, because we kind of we set up the table and then we're like, we'll just keep this. We'll change some missions. I mean, we're not game breaking with terrain or anything like that.
Yeah, so. No. Our terrain setup was kind of fun because we had like a raised section just in the middle. It was just big enough to like have an objective marker and the full 3 inches around the objective marker. And it was like a killing floor. You went up there and the whole table pretty much could see you, which was kind of fun. It was basically like, don't go up there unless you have to, and then be prepared for the spoons.
Yeah, the first game it made a difference because something would step up there, die, or it was kind of back and forth. The second game there was nothing on it, and it's like, all right, everybody just run around the sides of of it, and it's like, well, I could run across it to be quicker, but everything can shoot me.
Yeah. My list in that game was pretty similar to game 1, but I did strip away a little bit and got Morty into the list. Old Mortarion is the first time I've ever ran Mortarion because I just got him this year in the Christmas box, and he was probably going to be pretty good. I don't know. Oath of Moment absolutely melted him off the table before he could get to where he wanted to go. Before he could get any, like, he got within like ranged weapon ability in, I think tried to shoot once, and then that was pretty much it.
Yeah. So I think one negative with our table was once you got towards the middle area, you could see everything.
Yeah.
Which I think, I mean, it helped out my army a lot because I can step out everything and then be like, Oath of Momenting that, and then shoot everything at it until it dies. And everything has full rerolls. So you can kill him like, oh, I only took a couple anti-tank options. Well, I can shoot at him with every option, and it's not terrible.
Yeah.
It's just like that weight of fire that you can dunk on him, which, I mean, I don't know if we change up the table, if it helps out a little bit, or, I mean, I think too, even we were talking about after the fact, saying like, you could have maybe you should have set Morty up in strat reserves there and brought him on later.
Maybe something.
But but like that's a tactical thing, because I know you were just like walking him around so he could get shot at.
Yes.
And the one thing too with him that I noticed was weird is he doesn't have like a lone operative or even a uh whatchamacallit, like a bodyguard, unless we played it completely wrong. So like he just gets shot at.
Yeah, he kind of just gets shot at. I mean, I was doing everything I can for defensive, from strats to his host of plagues to keep him in cover essentially the whole time, and it just kind of didn't matter. It was like, I think you went first that game, so by the end of your third turn, Morty was off the table, and I was just starting to get him somewhere I could use him.
Yeah, it's like he was coming into range, and then it's like, okay, now's a turn. I need to melt him.
Yes, and melt him you did.
Yes.
Mucho melto.
And I think obviously early in this edition, I'm not saying like you don't know how terrain should be set up in a way for how it plays.
Sure.
So I think shooting's a lot maybe stronger, just from like we don't know what we're doing, take shooting, because we don't know how to, like, if you can shoot far, the farther you can shoot, the better off you are.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it takes like multiple turns to walk at somebody.
For sure.
But
anything crazy happened that game? You had your bike dudes blow up themselves up in a whole unit in one roll. That was fun.
So I was running the two. My list was very similar. I think I dropped the Terminators for the Infernus Marines, or was what they're called, the new Flamer dudes. Which they didn't do much for how I had them positioned. But yeah, no, I rolled some bikes out there, and I was like, all right, I'm going to shoot them, and overcharged, and I didn't really do any damage, and then I rolled 3 ones, and I killed them, and they died.
Yes, very much.
So that was fun.
Before we get to kind of our final thoughts on it thus far, if you're still watching at this point in the video, thank you. We appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you like kind of this form, this more podcast kind of form of just talking about stuff. We used to only do the podcasts on Song of Ice and Fire stuff. And we've talked about getting back to like a, at least a once a month podcast kind of episode or whatever. I know a lot of people, like, I like to turn on a podcast of people talking about games and stuff when I'm painting and that kind of stuff. So we're hoping that the people who listen to this are kind of doing the same. But let us know in the comments if you kind of like this, and if, what do you think? Like, if you want to see maybe some battle reports that we could throw together when we do get the opportunity to play, and those sorts of things, and just whatever content you may be interested in. If anyone's still listening at this point, if you're still listening at this point, period, just let me know. Write, I don't know, write Poxwalker in the comments. I want to see how many Poxwalker comments I can get. Speaking of Poxwalkers, game 2, I did have a unit of Poxwalkers. Or no, that was our 3-player game, wasn't it?
That was a 3-player game, yes.
Oh, man, it was like the little Poxwalkers that could, man.
The one thing I will say is we'll get to the 3-player game later, but there was a situation that played out where there's like a unit of Poxwalkers in front of me, and that only thing that could really see me where I was at, and it's the only thing I could really shoot. And I was like, okay, and I shot my whole army at it, and it took everything to kill them.
You had to charge. You had to charge one Poxwalker.
I had to charge the one Poxwalker, and I was just like,
it was insane. I think, getting Typhus and running some Poxwalker lists are definitely going to be a thing that I do sooner rather than later.
Well, the funny thing is too is I didn't. It's the one instance I don't think I oath the momented them,
That's
and
right.
it was
Yeah.
like, oh my god, my army can't kill these. Like I need my rules.
You oath a moment at the third player's
Yeah,
custodies.
and then I was like, yep, nope, can't kill that. And
Yep.
it's actually is just funny.
So that brings me to one of my final thoughts here is Oath Moment seemed really strong. The amount of effort and resources that I have to put into getting some rerolls, and then Dakota would just reroll everything the whole
Mhm.
round as long as he was shooting at whatever it is he was trying to blow up. Um, I was definitely like, oh, like you may need to run a not gonna say a spammier list, but like lots of little units against
Uh-huh.
Space Marines versus the 7 Death Shroud Terminators or Mortarion or whatever.
Yeah, running those big units, it was really strong against because you're just like, I'm gonna point and click at that. I can
Yep.
see it. Everybody's gonna be able to see it. Point click, make you pick it up. Um, I think maybe that MSU type of multiple small units might be the way. And yeah, because even too, I know there were some instances. I think the one thing. So I know some people have been hating on Death Guard a little bit because they're like, oh, they do this, and even you, like in the one game, you're like, oh, my army roll doesn't even matter because we're playing a mission that gives it to me too. But the everything having an invul was kind of, I don't want to say annoying, but it was just like, okay, what's my AP? And you're like, I'm AP3, and you're like, well, I got a 4 up anyways, and it's like only
Mhm.
one of my AP actually matters. Cool. Um, not that always mattered, but then the I did feel like a lot too. You were always wounding on 2s and 3s. I feel like there's very few times I think that you were wounding, like wound rolling on like a 5 or better, like 5 or 6.
Yeah, outside the Poxwalkers, but yeah,
Yeah.
my which is completely understandable. Yeah, my strength I felt was always pretty good, and then my stinky bubble continuously dropped your toughness a little, so that always helped.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, because I'd be like, oh, I have D5 Terminators, and you're like, oh, well, you're in Contagion and Strength 8, and it's like, all right, you're wounded on 2s. Cool, cool,
yep.
cool, cool.
But once again, so to kind of piggyback off my stinky bubble, um, the battle shock
Mhm.
didn't matter much. Like I
Yeah,
think we pretty much everyone passed their battle shock test. I think you might have failed one.
I failed one, and then I like instantly passed it because it
Yeah,
was
you
like an
stratted it.
early. What was it? It was like an early. No, I didn't even
Oh,
strat
that's
it.
right. Yeah, because
It was
you
like round
failed it.
one or it was like round 1 or 2, and there was no melee combat happening. So you shot me with a mortar,
Uh huh.
and I failed it.
And
And
then
then
it was your command
nothing
phase, and you
nothing
passed it.
happened, and there's my command phase, and I passed it.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
right.
so it was like, okay, and a lot of it too. I mean, Marines are basically a 6 up. I don't know what Death Guard is, but we were either passing it or we were outright killing the units where
Yeah.
there was nobody to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I was playing pretty like small units, so if they were getting shot consistently, they were probably going to die. But even so, like it just, I don't know, it just didn't seem like a thing.
It wasn't nearly as relevant as I thought it was going to be,
Mm-hmm.
especially when I was looking at Death Guard stuff and I was like, oh, cool, I can put them at negatives to battle shocks and things like that. And then it was,
You,
don't
you,
think it came up.
I don't even know if your negatives came up,
I
like
don't,
where
I
it's
don't,
like,
I don't think the negatives even came up because it's just a couple of attachments or something. I can't remember off the top of my head, um, but yeah, the negatives I don't even remember.
I think it came up a couple times, but I outrolled it because it was like, oh, you're -2, so it 8 up, and I rolled like 9s and 10s.
Yeah,
I mean, I was playing Dark Angels, and half of their stuff is fail battle shock, get a buff. So there's a couple
yeah,
times I'm like, I hope I just fail it because I'm not going to use a strat on this unit anymore. But then like that one being battle shocked, I can buff somewhere else, but then it's like I'm not buffing myself.
For sure,
and,
for sure.
and yeah, like if maybe it's just a play. You got to play bigger units. I don't know. I'm not sure what the
Or maybe
is.
we'll find more ways to exploit it as we get comfortable in 10th edition or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
And maybe we're just playing two armies that don't exploit it versus each other.
right.
Like you
Very
have
possible.
you have good leadership. I got pretty good leadership. Yeah, you're going to debuff me a little bit, but if you don't outright kill him, it doesn't matter. If you outright kill him, it doesn't matter.
Yep. So, any other final thoughts on our first weekend of 10th edition?
No, I mean, really, final thoughts are it was a blast getting to play it. I think we both started playing in ninth, but it like kind of being in at the beginning of this one, it's really been like you just know, like, oh, I could say something, and you're like, yeah, I know what that is. Maybe I don't know specifically, but it's like I know what critical hits are.
Lethal hit. Yeah, I
Like,
learned a few keywords. That was the goal of the weekend. Was
yeah,
to just learn some of the keywords on my units and not have to reference the sheet.
Yeah, and I don't think we ever got to that point in ninth where, like, you say a keyword and you'd be like,
rapid fire. That was the only one.
Yeah, that was
Where
the
I
only
was
one.
like, I know this one.
Yeah, I know them. But
okay, well, thanks for hanging out once again. Let us know how you like kind of us throwing in some podcast style format, and we'll see you guys next time. We did take about 2 weeks off with the holidays, and because Dakota lives a good ways away, but he came to town for the weekend, and then we had a little technical difficulty on a video that was supposed to go up and stuff and things, but we took a little break and ready to get back after it. So we hope to see everyone next time.
thanks for joining us, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.